Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to another edition of A Visit to the Mound. I'm Lark Smith, along with Stan Hough, and today we have a very special guest with us, and Parker Bangs. He's a buddy of yours, so Stan, you tell us all about Parker.
Parker is he's a pitching coach at Rice now. I thought this would be an excellent opportunity to kind of get his take on what's going on at Rice University. Of course, it was a former Southwest Conference team, and you know they're right here in Houston. So, Parker, you're the pitching coach now. So give us a synopsis of Parker Bangs and what's going on with your career.
What in the world are you doing at Rice University?
So I played collegiately at South Carolina. Spent a few years in the minor leagues in the Royal system, where I was lucky enough to learn from, some of the best guys to do it in the coaching side of things. Whether that was my pitching coaches or pestering the hitting coaches to figure out everything I could know about the other side of the ball as well. Kind of figured out that I wanted to be a coach toward the end of that part of it. Had no idea how to get into it. What's interesting is that I actually got seen. I was trying to make a comeback as a hitter after I got released because I did both in college. No takers, but that's okay. So I was playing church league slow pitch softball with a buddy of mine.
I think we've all been there.
And hitting a lot of homers, et cetera, et cetera. So the guy running the league asked my buddy, who is that guy and why is he here? Turns out the guy running the league was a high school coach at the local high school, Dutch Fork High School, and he asked me if I would be his assistant. So I did hitting on varsity and pitching on JV, and then he got the job as the head coach of the Columbia Blowfish, which is a team in the Collegiate Summer League, Coastal Plains League. He asked me if I wanted to be his assistant. So I was hitting coach, pitching coach for him there. Then I got a head job at a local high school in Columbia and a head job in the same league in the CPL with the Wilmington Sharks. And then from there, I was the pitching coach at Presbyterian College, which is a D1 in Clinton, South Carolina. And then I was the pitching coach at Davidson College for 4 years in Davidson, North Carolina. And now we're here.
Well, out of South Carolina, where you were part of the College World Series championship team in 2010, you were drafted by the Kansas City Royals, but that was the 31st round. That's not necessarily one of those rounds that they're going to give those prospects a whole lot of opportunity to make it to the bigs, is it? No.
At that level, it's definitely a battle every day to get in. I hang my hat on the fact that I lasted longer than the average minor leaguer does. I think it's 1.4 years or something. It made a little bit longer than that, but again, it's my time in professional baseball was spent with me getting a lot of fantastic coaching from a lot of really smart guys because frankly, I stunk at everything I tried to do. So, I try to soak up all that knowledge as much as I could.
2 years of minor league ball is what I understand you lasted. Was it baseball just had enough of you, or do you had enough of minor league baseball?
No, I'd still be playing if they let me. So I got hurt. First year was spent fixing mechanics. Right in the middle of the second season, I hurt my elbow, tore my UCL partially. The rehab didn't quite take as well as I would have hoped. And then my third year, my velo just wasn't back. I was 24. I was 84, 87, which, guys are throwing 1,000 now, so it doesn't really work.
Right.
But now the Royals did release me. And again, I lasted longer than I thought I was going to. So, tried to make the most of my situation and my opportunities there and learn as much as I could.
Well, you mentioned that you were around some of the smartest baseball people you've ever been around. Who did you get the most information from that helped you get into coaching?
So the two names that always, pop up in my head whenever I'm asked this question are Mark Davis, who won a Cy Young with the Padres in '89. He was one of our AZL pitching coaches. And the other name is a guy named Carlos Reyes. So those are our two pitching coaches in the AZL my first year. And, I mean, to be able to learn from guys like that every day is just unbelievable.
Well, you said you were at Presbyterian at Davidson. Now you're at Rice, where Jose Cruz Jr. is the head coach there. How did you ever run across Jose Cruz Jr.? Did you just see the job opening, apply, and go interview?
So actually, they reached out to me. So last year, Davidson was top 10 nationally in about 10 pitching categories. So I guess that was how I drew his attention.
It helps.
It helps, especially at a place where it's essentially an Ivy League academic school. You don't get any help on getting guys in. It's not supposed to be able to do that. And I mean, the season that we had, we were top 10 in offensive and defensive pitching. Like, we were unbelievable. It's just kind of one of those things where the stars all aligned and the team was just on an absolute tear from the beginning to the end. And I mean, the work that, my guys were able to put in and the success they were able to have is, a big piece of, I obviously appreciate the work they put in because they helped me get a little bit better gig. So, he reached out to me, and then we did the whole interview process, and then brought me out to campus to show me all the bells and whistles, and we had a lot of bells and whistles from all sides of it. So
yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And we have $1 million pitching lab, and I get to work in every day.
Wow.
That helps.
Yes, it does. And we're kind of on the cutting edge on the analytics and tech and player development side in college. So, and that's kind of the dream situation for me.
I see. What? Tell us about Jose Cruz Jr. and working with him.
I mean, they're not enough words. It's a perfect combination of an unbelievable baseball mind and the way that he sees the game with his amount of experience and what he's done and his life he's lived. It's awesome to be able to bounce ideas off somebody like that. And we're scrimmaging. He sits behind home plate so we can look at the pitches from a hitting perspective.
I see.
And
yeah, that's
so he looks at it from his own perspective, and then he'll come over. If he pitches bad, he's like, "Hey, we need to probably axe that pitch." I saw that right away. I was like, "Well, your eyes are a little different than most college guys, but we'll definitely work on it." But I mean, it's having someone with that wealth of experience have the office next to mine and do that every day I'm very lucky to have that opportunity to be able to do that.
Well, it's a person with a lot of experience at the highest level too, and you can garner a lot of knowledge from that as well. So that's really good that you're there, and you said you were soaking up that knowledge with the Kansas City Royals. Now you can do it with Jose Cruz too.
Yes, yeah, that's kind of I try to every opportunity I get to learn something new. That's kind of the whole goal, is to continue to better myself as a coach, so I can help players get better at a higher percentage.
That's good. So we have some commonality here, Parker. So your step-grandfather is Jack Aker, who pitched in the big leagues for 20-plus years, and he was actually my manager in Lynchburg, Virginia, with the New York Mets in the Carolina League, 1976. So can you give us a little bit talk about Jack for a second?
Well, growing up knowing that someone of that magnitude in a game that I loved, that was really cool, for me. And it's always something where people, you talk about it like, oh yeah, actually a step-granddad played in the big leagues for like 20 years. Like, oh wow, really? So it's a neat conversation piece as well. But, just to know that the history of our family has kind of always just been baseball, and really feeling like I picked the right thing to do with my life. Not necessarily, not almost as if it was destined to be so, and not really even a choice that I made.
Right.
But I mean, it's hard to get away from the game. It feels like it's in my blood.
Well, I got to tell you, working with Jack and playing for him, actually I played for him in Visalia and in Lynchburg. So I learned a lot from him myself. And he was actually he was signed as a third baseman, I believe, and he said he couldn't hit. So he had a really good arm, so they put him on the mound. Next thing you know, he's got 20 years in the big leagues. But as you're doing with Jose Cruz is what I did with Jack, and I learned a lot from his expertise and experience as well when he was the manager there. I thought he was a wonderful manager too, and he actually won the AAA Little World Series one year with Tidewater in the Mets organization. So there. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. I want to ask you, we touched on this the other day. I wanted you give us I know about recruiting in professional baseball, but that's the only it's the only avenue I've traveled. I wasn't in college as a coach and all that. And can you talk to us about what goes on with recruiting ball players and what you have to look for in high school ball players?
So we also recruit junior college players as well now at Rice. They have to obviously meet the academic standard that Rice has, which is super high, but the JUCO world has opened up for us as well. Also, the transfer portal. So, that's a recent phenomenon where you can transfer any D1 to any D1 and not have to sit out. So that's kind of opened the floodgates. So that's a big piece for us as well. So there's a lot of different worlds that we have to make sure we're plugged into. And that comes from developing connections with all these coaches, with showcase coaches, with junior college coaches, with all these guys. So, we kind of have a wave of names that we have to cipher through every single day. But it's the email inbox is high every day, as you can expect. So
yes.
That's a big piece of just going through and doing our diligence, making sure, all right, this kid's video looks good. Let's dive into the grades and see if that's a thing. If he's a fit academically for us, let's talk to some people about him. See if he's a fit as a kid, then reach out to the kid and start the dialogue there. So it's kind of a continuous flow of information that we have to make sure we filter and we manage. But it all stems from, first point, do we like him on the field? Does he do things that we like, that we think he's a fit on the field? And then we start to dive into all the off-field stuff to make sure he's a good fit for the locker room, for the school.
Right.
All that stuff as well. Because, I've always said that, you don't necessarily want the most talented guy. You want the guy that fits your system the best.
Right.
So you're not having to completely reinvent someone when they go on campus. And the line I always tell kids when I'm talking to them on the phone is, if I have to reinvent you, I shouldn't recruit you.
Wow.
So it's always about, because we only have 4 years with them. So
correct.
If we're spending and developing, if I have to clean an arm path, if I have to clean this or that mechanically, that stuff takes a long time. So there's no guarantee that it takes right away. So if I lose a year and a half of building mechanics with you and you buying into it and trusting how your body moves in the new movement pattern, then we're wasting valuable time we could otherwise have.
Right.
So you look for the guys you can help right away because we don't know how long we're going to have them.
I can envision how difficult it might be to recruit to Rice simply because of the academic requirements there. But
yes,
you got to find pretty much that perfect fit. One thing that we haven't really, at least I haven't really thought about on the baseball level, but it's been talked about greatly on the football level, is NIL money. What does that have to do, or is that affecting baseball recruiting in any way?
To a certain extent, not quite as much as football. We're all still trying to figure out how to use it, and if we can use it. The big guys are using it. I think some of the bigger SEC schools really took advantage of the fact that they could do it this summer. a lot of big, huge name transfers that went to big places, and there were lucrative NIL deals, and a lot of grumpy coaches at places that are losing guys that do the NIL stuff. So it's like, I mean, the way I look at it is like, man, if we could all do it, we would all do it. So it's just a different version of the haves and the have-nots, where a few giant schools that have always had more, because that's just the nature of the game and the nature of the beast in college, because they're always going to have more. They just have another method to get guys. So it just makes it a little more difficult.
Right, I understand.
So it's not like we were going to beat those guys, or like we're not going to beat LSU for a kid anyway, So it's just another way for them to have an advantage on the recruiting side of things.
Okay, as we kind of wrap up this conversation with the pitching coach for the Rice Owls, Parker DeBangs, give us a little insight on the Rice Owls this coming baseball season.
So this fall, we tried a little bit different method. Instead of jumping right into scrimmages, we held off. We did 6 weeks of a kind of a gestation period so we could introduce all the new stuff that we're bringing with us, because the Rice didn't have the best year last year, so there was kind of a developmental overhaul. Coach Cruz is kind of getting his feet wet still a little bit in the college game and understanding how all the things work. He's new to the college side of it, and college is very, very different from the pro side. So I think we're in a good spot there where the whole staff is working very well together. I honestly feel like I've been on the staff for 15 years.
Been working that much, have you?
Yeah, maybe that's why. But the improvements have been tremendous on both sides of the ball. With the pitching development being kind of the primary necessity. And I mean, I don't really like to talk about how good we're going to be before the season, just as a general rule, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to be good on both sides of the ball.
Well, you've got quite a bit of very competitive baseball down there in the Houston area, because the Houston Cougars have been doing very well recently. Houston Baptist, or what they call it, Houston Christian now, is really coming up with Bergman over there as their head coach. You're not that far away from Sam Houston, which has always been very competitive. So you've got several teams around there that can help you increase your abilities, because you have to be competitive against these guys.
Right. And I mean, then you take into account the other schools that are in Texas. I think we play all of them. We play UTSA's in our conference, A&M's on the schedule, Texas Tech's on the schedule, TCU's on the schedule. So there's a lot of great opportunities to, play a lot of really, really awesome teams, a lot of very great programs. So, we're excited about the challenge. We're excited about the possibilities, and kind of the beginning of the season is 9 really difficult games. So it's going to be a nice litmus test to see how good we actually are. And also better prepare our guys for conference play, which, hopefully you play more difficult non-conference games, and so you're better battle tested and ready for conference games when they come up.
That's right. You play people that might be better than you. You're going to get better too. You're going to rise to that level. Listen, Parker, we do appreciate you coming on and helping us out with this today, and giving us some insight into what's going on with Rice, yourself, and in college baseball. So once again, we want to wish you good luck and great season for the Rice Owls, and we appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you guys for having me.
That's our time for this episode of A Visit to the Mound. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments or anything you would like for us to cover, we would love to hear from you. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Visit to the Mound, or visit us online at avisittothemound.com. Make sure you like, subscribe, and review this podcast, and be listening the next time we make A Visit to the Mound. That'll wrap up this Visit to the Mound. We certainly appreciate you joining us today for a little baseball talk. Anytime you want to hear something about baseball, you can find us anywhere you get your podcast, or you can go to roguemedianetwork.com for the next edition of A Visit to the Mound.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.